Hello everyone, back tuning in to today's video. We're doing a big update for today's video. We're doing the winter 2018-19 NAO forecast. So this is kind of like the first step on the path towards the countdown to winter. We actually begin the winter updates themselves at the start of September, but this is always kind of like the first point on our journey, if you like. This is leaving base camp to begin to move to level 1, if you like, of the update. So we're going to have a look at the sea surface temperature anomalies across the Atlantic Ocean during May. We're looking for a tripod. I'll talk you through the methodology in a second. And then from those sea surface temperature anomalies across the Atlantic Ocean, we'll do a projection for what the NAO might be doing for the winter of 2018-19 in a second. Just say it's going to be quite a long video, so you can't watch it all in one go. You will be able to come back to the website whenever you want to watch it on what will be a newly created page purely for winter 2018-19 update videos. So there'll be a written post placed on that page that goes with a video later on today. Just going over everything that we discuss in the video. And then from September, that will be the page where all of the winter updates will ultimately be placed. And eventually, by the time you get through to the end of November and the start of December, that will be the page where the winter forecast is released onto. So, it's going to be a very important page for the next few months at Gazabits. But starting it all off, beginning it all, is going to be this winter 2018 NAO forecast. So I'll get on with that for you in a second. Just say that there's not going to be a Sunday roundup today. I've cleared the decks for this particular update because it's such an important update. So no Sunday roundup. That will be back in a week's time. No autumn analogues either. They'll be back in a week's time as well. We will have Terry Scully's forecast for July, though, coming up later on today. So have a look at that later on. Right, so just say the first part of this, I'm going to talk you through the methodology. I'll explain what the NAO is, and then I'll talk you through what we're looking for in terms of the sea surface temperature anomalies. We've done this NAO update every year now since 2012, so a lot of people are going to be watching this for the first time, and I have to go over the methodology for those people. I have to assume that people that are watching for the very first time. So if you know methodology, you watch these videos before over the past few years, you'll know about the NAO, you'll know what we're looking for in the Atlantic, so you can skip on, you can safely skip on around 10 minutes or so. But I've got to go over the methodology just for all of those people that are watching for the very first time, and a warm welcome to those first time viewers as well, of course. So I'm going to explain about the NAO first of all. So we've got two phases of the North Atlantic Oscillation. We've got the positive phase of the NAO, and then we've got the negative phase of the North Atlantic Oscillation. And a good example of the positive phase of the NAO is this chart here from the 15th of January 1989. This is a classic positive NAO type setup. We've got loads of low pressure going on to our north with all these green and purple colours up around Greenland and Iceland. That's the polar vortex, very deep, very intense polar vortex to say the least in January 1989. With this strong ridge of high pressure centred over Spain, France, Portugal, and so in between we have this strong sort of gradient that's producing this southwesterly flow that's sweeping up, flooding up very warm, mild Atlantic, tropical Atlantic based air across the UK and Ireland, and also pushing that through into Europe. And in fact, that very mild air is being pushed right the way into Russia in this particular example. Remember, it's always the weather that's driving the index. So we do talk about the NAO as though almost as though it's a driver of the weather, but it isn't. It's just an index that's reflecting the state of the atmosphere. So in this situation, the reason the NAO is positive is because you've got this very strong Azores ridge across much of Europe, and then you've got all of this low pressure up here, and so the gradient indicated by the tight lines there, the isobars, which are strong and tightly packed, that's telling us that the NAO would be very positive in this example. But the reason the NAO is positive is because of the synoptic setup of that intense polar vortex around Greenland, Iceland, and the ridge of high pressure that's down across Europe that has extended in from the Azores high. Another classic example of a positive NAO is this one from the 4th of February 2000. So again, you see very similar to the previous example. We've got the high pressure there, above average pressure through France, down to Spain, down to Portugal. It does extend back into, let's try and find the colour. So we're going to go there. It does extend back into the Azores, into the Atlantic as well. So you've got all of this ridging going on through there. And then to the northern map, we've got low pressure around Greenland, around Iceland. You see again from those pink and purple and blue colours, we've got quite a strong polar vortex. Again, you'll notice the air is being pumped up with the jet stream from the tropical part or the central part of the Atlantic Ocean. So again, because you've got the high pressure to the south, the low pressure to the north, that is what's sending the NAO into its very positive phase, as it would have been on that particular day, 4th of February 2000. Now, the other phase of the NAO is negative. Well, there's actually three phases, because you can be neutral as well. So you've got kind of like positive NAO, negative NAO. In between, you'll have a neutral NAO. Actually, the gasweathers.com 2017-18 NAO forecast was for a broadly neutral NAO, possibly coming out on either side slightly of that. But generally a neutral NAO was the forecast last year. So you can have that third phase, actually, which is a neutral NAO. But what we're specifically looking for is either positive or negative. So this is a classic example of the negative phase of the North Atlantic Oscillation. This is from New Year's Day 2010, where we had this strong ridge of high pressure around Greenland and around Iceland as well. Then underneath it, we've got all of this low pressure down here. So it's a complete flip on the charts we was just looking at, where before with a positive NAO we had low pressure up around Greenland and Iceland and lots of blues and purples. In this example of the negative NAO, we've got high pressure around Greenland and Iceland, and instead of blues and purples on this chart, we've got greens and yellows, and you can also go to oranges as well, telling us we've got a genuine blocking area of high pressure from Greenland and extending back into the North Pole as well, into the Arctic. And then instead of the Azores high is gone. Really on this example, and instead of that we've got low pressure being brought through into southern Europe via the jet stream. Because the jet stream is down across southern Europe, that's allowing, via the blocking, really cold air to be pushed out of the Arctic and down into northern Europe and into the UK as well. So that's a classic example of a negative NAO. The reason the NAO, that example would be negative, is because we've got that strong block around Greenland and Iceland, and you've got low pressure from the Azores into southern Europe. It's always the weather that's driving the index. And another example of a negative NAO is this one from December 2010, from a December to remember. This is the most extreme example of a negative NAO that you can get, really, because you've got this incredible blocking feature developing around Greenland, going up to 1,075 millibars in its centre, and that's pushing down this very, very cold northerly wind. In fact, what is actually happening there is that the blocking is so intense, it's forcing out the polar vortex. So you remember, with the example of the positive NAO, we've got those green and purple colours. That was depicting the polar vortex around Greenland and Iceland. There's the polar vortex just there on this day, the 16th of December 2010. And look what happens over the next couple of days. The polar vortex collapses down across the UK and Ireland and most of Northern Europe as well, as it's pushed out of the Arctic by this intense sort of blocking feature. And so this is the most extreme example of a negative NAO that you could probably find, to be honest. Very, very much at the extreme range of a negative NAO. But it does show you what we're talking about in terms of the positive and the negative phases of the North Atlantic Oscillation. Now, one of the things that can tell you that you're likely to have a negative NAO, and so you're likely to have a blocking pattern, if you like, is a tripole in the Atlantic. And a tripole is where you get three distinct bands of sea surface temperature anomalies through the North Atlantic Oscillation. This is a very good example of a tripole. This is from the 17th of May 2005. So you'll see we've got Greenland up there. You'll see just to the south of Greenland it's warm. We've got these warmer than average sea surface temperature anomalies just to the south of Greenland. So that's our first distinct band. Then underneath that, you've got these cooler sea surface temperature anomalies through the Central Atlantic and also backing away towards the eastern seaboard of the United States. So that's our second distinct band where it's cooler. And then we come down into the tropical Atlantic, and again we see a third band. That's why it's a tripod. We've got three bands. You see the third band of warmer than average sea surface temperature anomalies there through the tropical Atlantic Ocean. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking to get a tripole for the winter of 2018-19, and if we got a tripole in the winter 2018-19, it would be very likely that we would get a colder than average winter. We would get a negative NAO, we would get blocking around Greenland, and we would get the chance, anyway, of a colder than average winter with those three distinct bands. Now, we use the month of May, and this is a UK Met Office methodology, by the way. These are the UK Met Office that perfected this particular methodology. We look at the month of May because that's kind of like the quietest month of the year, and so it will show you where the natural state of the Atlantic is in that particular year. And then the idea is that as you go in towards the winter, you will find the pattern that occurs during the May. You'll find the pattern that happens in the Atlantic with these sea surface temperature anomalies in May. You'll find that re-emerging through the winter. This is another good example of the tripole. This is from 2010. So this is May 2010, preceding the December to remember, preceding December 2010. Again, the three distinct bands of warm over cool over warm. Again, notice how warm it is through the tropical Atlantic in 2010. Then we've got this cooler area through the central northern Atlantic and backing towards the eastern seaboard. And then south of Greenland, you've got this warmer area coming through once again. So that's another really classic cracking example of the tripole. That's a little bit wrong, so let's change that again. So we've got the warm, we've got the cool, and then we've got the warm again, the three distinct bands in May 2010 preceding the December to remember. And then finally we've got May 1995. This is longer further ago, it's longer ago, so the projection of the map is a little bit different, but essentially it's still the same. So we've got warm up here. Ignore this blue area, that shouldn't be there. It should be warm. It should be warmer than average. You see, so temperature is up there. That's just purely because of how long ago this map was generated. Then, so we've got the warm area up there. We've got the cooler area around here through the central part of the Atlantic, and then around here through the tropical Atlantic. It's warmer again. So let's change that, and it's warmer just there. It's cooler just there, and it's warmer up there. You've got the three distinct bands of warmer over cooler over warmer once again. May 1995 precedes the cold winter of 95-96. So that's the methodology, that's what we're looking for. We're looking to get a tripole. We've almost talked for 15 minutes, so now I'm just going to very quickly pause the video, and from here we will go on and do the winter 2018-19 NAO forecast based upon the sea surface temperature anomalies in the North Atlantic in May 2018. So I'm just going to pause the video there, and I'll see you back here in around sort of 2 seconds time. So see you in a couple of minutes. Okay, and we're back. So I'm just check to make sure that we're recording. Yes, we are. So we explained about the winter 2018 NAO forecast methodology in the first part of the video. I talked you through what the NAO is, what the positive phase of the NAO is, what the negative phase of the NAO is, and also you can have a third phase, which is kind of like neutral for the NAO. I also explained what we're looking for in terms of predicting a negative North Atlantic oscillation based on this methodology of looking at sea surface temperature anomalies in the North Atlantic in the month of May. We're looking for a tripole, which is the 3 distinct bands of warm over cool over warm through the North Atlantic down to the tropical Atlantic, from Greenland to the tropics, if you like. So now it's time to have a look at the sea surface temperature anomalies in the North Atlantic during May 2018, and then from there we will be able to project what is likely to be the NAO state for this winter. So we're going to start off by having a look at the sea surface temperature anomaly map for the 3rd of May 2018. All these sea surface temperature anomaly maps coming from NOAA, of course. You can find the link to this website, to NOAA, and the sea surface temperature anomaly maps from NOAA on the links page at Gav's Weather Vids. So what do we have in the North Atlantic for this particular May? So again, we're starting off on the 3rd of May, and we find that we've got cooler than average sea surface temperature anomalies to the south of Greenland, and also going down there in towards to Spain and Portugal. It's then warmer through the central part of the North Atlantic and going back towards the east coast of America, and then it's cooler again as we look down towards the tropical Atlantic. So in a way we do have 3 distinct bands, but it's like a reverse tripole, if you like. So instead of warm, cool and warm, we've actually got cool, warm and cool sea surface temperature anomalies going on there. Let's go through to the 10th of May, and we see no real change, except the pattern is kind of like intensifying. So these cooler than average temperature anomalies to the sea surface temperature anomalies to the south of Greenland, they are intensifying. The warmer than average sea surface temperature anomalies through the central part of the Atlantic are also increasing, and the tropics also cooling as well. So now you really can see that we have got 3 distinct areas of cool, warm and cool sea surface temperature anomalies going on there. And then this increases further into the middle part of the month. This is the 15th of May 2018, where the colder than average sea surface temperature anomalies are increasing again. It's becoming really quite cold with those sea surface temperature anomalies now, but it's warm just here, and then the tropics continues to look really quite cool indeed. So this is a tripole in a way, but it's like a reverse tripole. Instead of warm, cool, warm, this is cool, warm and cool going on through the northern part of the Atlantic. That's the 24th of May, when again those anomalies are increasing. So again we've got these very much cooler than average sea surface temperature anomalies to the south of Greenland. It's much warmer through the central Atlantic and backing over towards the eastern seaboard of America. I mean, it's looking really very cool indeed by this point down across the tropical part of the Atlantic Ocean. This is a classic cold Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation signal. Won't explain that for this video, but it is very, very classic of a cold AMO. And that's how we end May 2018 in terms of the sea surface temperature anomalies, and there's no change at all. It remains very cool to the south of Greenland. It remains warm through the central part of the Atlantic Ocean and going over towards the eastern seaboard of America. And then it remains cool through the tropical part of the Atlantic Ocean. So we continue to have those three distinct bands of cool, warm, and cool, which is the reverse of the tripole. And so what we have to say from that is, because a tripole, which is warm, cool, warm, so again, just a reminder of the tripole is warm, cool, warm, and that would signal a negative NAO because we've got the reversal of the tripole. So kind of like the tripole's gone into reverse here, and instead of that, we've actually got cool, and we've got warm, and we've got cool again. Because of that, the NAO forecast has to be for a positive North Atlantic oscillation for the winter of 2018-19, based purely on this methodology. So it's just this methodology alone, and based on purely this methodology, because of what those sea surface temperature anomalies have done in the North Atlantic through the course of May, we have to predict, we can't do anything other than predict a positive, maybe even very positive North Atlantic oscillation for the winter of 2018-2019. There are several caveats that we have to add to this that I want to put in. So I've already explained that the signature that we see there, cold, warm, and cold again, the signature that we see is indicative of a cold AMO, a cold North Atlantic oscillation. I haven't got time to go into the AMO and its phases for this video. I suspect it will be something we'll discuss in depth in the winter updates. Remember, the winter updates will begin on the first Sunday of September. So this, again, is just the first step along a long journey. It's like one ingredient that we put into the cake. It will make up part of winter forecast when we come to issue winter forecast at the end of November, start of December, but it's only one ingredient. There's a lot more that has to go in to create the cake, so please keep that at the back of your mind. And we will, in those winter updates, we will discuss the AMO, the cold AMO. We'll probably have to touch on the warm AMO as well, but this is indicative of a cold AMO, and actually we haven't seen anything like this for a very, very long time. The closest match that I can find to May 2018 in terms of a modern year is 2015. So you'll see it's kind of similar, but much more extreme this year. So kind of similar with those cooler than average sea surface temperature anomalies just there. Then it's warmer through that central part of the Atlantic, and then it's cooler again through the tropical Atlantic. So we do kind of like have a signature of a reverse tripole. We have almost got this horseshoe shape of cold backing from the North Atlantic down to the tropics that we see this year. But this year is much more extreme. So that's May 2015. That is this year. Obviously, a much more extreme pattern, much more extreme anomaly. We did say when that occurred in 2015 that we was probably starting to go into the cold AMO. It was probably the first signs of a cold AMO beginning to appear in the Atlantic. But this is genuine cold AMO stuff. And we haven't seen this in the North Atlantic since the early 1990s. The AMO was last in its cold phase from the 1970s, late 1960s, through the 1970s, through the 1980s, to the early 1990s. Then the AMO phase in the middle of the 1990s, particularly the year 1995 was the main year when the AMO switched from its cold phase to its warm phase. Hope you're keeping up with this. It's off on a bit of a tangent, really, but it is important for what I'm going to say in a moment. So the AMO changed from cold to warm in the middle of the 1990s. We'll discuss all this in the winter updates again, as I said. And so we haven't seen anything like this in the North Atlantic since the early part of the 1990s and back into the 1980s. And so whilst 2015 is the closest match we can find to this year, we're actually going to have to go much, much further back to try and find some years that are closer. So one year is 1992. This is how the sea surface temperature anomalies looked in the North Atlantic during May 1992. You see, this is much closer to the current position than 2015. So it's much cooler over a much wider area to the south of Greenland. We've got this warmer area through the central part of the Atlantic, but it's cool to very cool through the tropics. We've got the horseshoe shape of cold, warm, cold, and so that is a classic cold AMO signature. And from that, you would have to project, again, a positive North Atlantic oscillation for the winter of 92, 93, and that is indeed what happened. Now, the real caveat with this, the big caveat that I've got to lay out there is we know that although sort of the late 60s, through the 1970s, through the 1980s to the early 1990s, we know that was our last cold AMO period. And so most of those years you would have the cold Atlantic sea surface temperature anomaly is similar to what we have this year. But cold winters still occurred for the UK and for Europe during this cold AMO period. So the tripole is not the be-all and end-all. You can get cold and very cold winters even without a tripole. So obviously there are many other factors that are at play here, and these factors are what we will touch upon as we do the winter updates. So I want to show you a couple of really cold AMO Mays. This is May 1985. Look how cold the Atlantic is in May 1985. Remember, these charts from a very long time ago, so the projection does look rather strange, but quite obviously the tropical Atlantic is really cool here, and then it's also very cool south of Greenland down to Newfoundland, and we do find it warmer there. So obviously, and this is preceding the very cold winter of 1985-1986. So despite that, we clearly don't have a tripole whatsoever going on there. In May 1985, the following winter was very cold. And then we've got another example, which is May 1986. This is pretty close, actually, to the current position. So, again, we've got the horseshoe shape of cold just there. So it's colder up there, it's colder down through the tropics, and then it's warmer over there through the central part of the Atlantic. Again, this is preceding another cold winter that occurred through the 1980s, or the middle of the 1980s, had a run of cold winters from 84, 85 through to 86, 87. We have three of them, three cold winters. And at times they were pretty severe winters as well. And so, as I say, we'll touch upon this much more when we do the winter updates, because we'll have to go even further back than this, have a look at the sea surface temperature anomaly maps through other years of the cold AMO, from the 1970s and even back to 1960s, I suspect, to try and find some closer matches to the current situation in the North Atlantic. But I wanted to throw that in because, again, whilst we can't do anything other on this methodology, forecast a positive NAO for the winter of 2018-19. Nevertheless, there are many other factors that will be important for the winter, and it's by no means certain, just because we've got this cold AMO signature, it is by no means certain that this winter will be a mild winter. It will be a positive NAO, despite what's happened in the North Atlantic through the month of May, because there are many other factors. Solar activity, which is going to be a solar minimum winter, so solar activity will be an important factor, and those winters that I just talked about in the middle of the 1980s, they occurred around a solar minimum period as well. Other factors will be ENSO. You know, all the stuff we talk about through winter updates. We'll look at what's happening in the Pacific Ocean in terms of El Nino, La Nina. We'll look how quickly snow cover is advancing across Siberia and Russia, and there are other factors as well that become important as we go through the winter updates. And as I say, the first one of winter updates will be on the first Sunday of September, which I think is probably the 2nd or the 3rd of September. So that's the NAO forecast anyway. We can't do anything other than forecast a positive NAO based on this methodology. So I know this will be a little bit of a letdown for anyone that wants to have a cold winter. Conversely, there will be people watching who will be quite happy that the NAO forecast is predicting a positive to very positive NAO. But again, keep in mind that it's only one part of the forecast. There will be several other factors that we have to look at through winter updates. And we know that we're now in a cold AMO signature, quite clearly defined. And we know that in the previous cold AMO, which was from the 1960s to the early 1990s, we know that cold winter still managed to happen through that period. So I'd suggest just filing this away as of interest, and it will make up a part of the winter forecast as well, by the way. But come back in September, and I think we are in for a very interesting season of updates. I'll say no more than that. Finally, just want to say that if you enjoyed the winter NAO forecast and you enjoy our updates and videos, you can become a patron for Gazovitz. So visit the Gazovitz Patreon page if you would like to become a patron for Gazovitz and sort of pledge ongoing monthly sum of money to us. Only has to be as little as $1 a month. Then please come to the Gazovitz Patreon page and give us a donation. Alternatively, you can give a one-off donation through the Gazovitz PayPal page, and this is the Gazovitz PayPal page. It's helping to pay for the website. It's helping to pay to keep all of the content totally free of charge at Gazovitz. So if you'd like to become a patron or make a one-off donation to Gazovitz through PayPal, that is how you can do it. And a big thank you to all of our patrons and donors for doing that for Gazovitz, doing that for us. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and give us a like on the video if you enjoyed this NAO forecast. And as I say, we've got to go away now. Enjoy the rest of the summer. Don't worry about this too much if you want a cold winter. And then we come back in September, just a couple of months away now. And we begin again with another season of winter updates. And particularly from the solar perspective, with this being the solar minimum winter, I think we're going to be in for a very, very interesting season of winter updates. Despite this NAO forecast, I think there's going to be a lot of twists and turns before we get to release the Gazovitz.com winter 18-19 forecast, which will be at the start of December. Alright, and at 33 minutes, all that remains is for me to say thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share the video. And, well, that's all for now. We'll see you in September if you're coming back for winter updates. And, of course, updates will continue between now and then, every day at Gazovitz as we go through the remainder of the summer. This video will be placed on the winter 18-19 updates and forecast page later on today with a written summary at 33, nearly 34 minutes. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.